What no one tells you is that when a man crosses 40, something shifts, not dramatically, not overnight, but quietly, almost invisibly. It's not bitterness, it's not anger, and it's definitely not that men suddenly stop wanting connection. What happens is far more subtle and far more powerful. He finally starts seeing the truth he ignored for years. And once that truth lands, everything about how he approaches women, dating, and relationships changes forever. Most men over 40 don't talk about this shift. They don't rant online, they don't post emotional videos, they don't make dramatic announcements. They simply retreat, slowly, calmly, and without explanation. They answer questions with phrases like, "I'm good," or "I'm focusing on myself." But under that simple surface is decades of lived experience quietly rearranging their priorities. And here's the part most women never see coming. Mature men don't step back because they don't want love. They step back because they finally understand the cost of it. A younger man still believes he has unlimited emotional energy. He thinks he can power through drama, mood swings, arguments, mixed signals, and disrespect because he was told, "That's just part of being in a relationship." But by the time a man hits his 40s or 50s, that illusion collapses. Years of observing patterns makes things painfully obvious. He sees what brings peace into his life and what quietly destroys it. He recognizes the difference between a partner and a project. He finally understands what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." When a woman disrupts his peace, his thoughts spiral, his stress rises, and the relationship becomes a battle he never signed up for. Men over 40 don't have the energy to fight unnecessary battles anymore. And this is where the quiet withdrawal begins. A younger man might stay and argue. A mature man simply disconnects. He becomes polite but distant, kind but unavailable, present but no longer invested. He doesn't leave loudly, he leaves internally first. Another thing that changes with age is tolerance. When a man is young, he tolerates red flags because he thinks that's just how relationships are. He tolerates emotional roller coasters, unclear communication, and disrespect disguised as just being honest. But with age comes clarity. And with clarity comes a zero-tolerance policy. Past 40, a man finally understands that peace is more important than passion, that stability is more valuable than excitement, and that affection without respect is worthless. A man who's lived long enough has already paid the cost of ignoring those truths, and he refuses to repeat that mistake. This is also why modern dating feels off for many men over 40. The roles have shifted, expectations have expanded. The simplicity and natural polarity that once made relationships flow now feels unbalanced. Men are still expected to lead, provide, protect, plan, and be the emotional anchor, while receiving less softness, less appreciation, and less reciprocity than ever before. And men over 40, they can feel that imbalance instantly. They're not confused, they're not insecure. They're not afraid of commitment. They just finally see the truth. Relationships today often demand more from men than they return. And because these men value peace more than performance, they step back, not from women, but from situations that drain their energy and cost them their emotional stability. Once a man tastes a peaceful life, he becomes incredibly selective about who he lets into it. If a woman brings drama, conflict, entitlement, or emotional unpredictability, he doesn't fight it. He simply loses interest. That's the quiet part, the part no one sees until he's already gone. This is the first realization men over 40 experience. Peace is priceless, and they're no longer willing to trade it. If you're still watching, comment "peace" to lock this in. And if you want to join a growing community of men who are evolving, thinking differently, and protecting their peace, make sure you subscribe. Once a man crosses 40, something else starts to happen internally. Something deeper than simply losing tolerance for chaos. He begins valuing a level of inner calm he never even knew he needed in his younger years. And this is the part that surprises most women. Men over 40 don't disconnect because they've stopped caring. They disconnect because they finally understand what caring has cost them. Younger men are driven by need. Need for validation, need for affection, need for approval. They chase relationships believing they will fill an emotional gap. But men over 40 have lived long enough to learn a hard truth. The wrong relationship doesn't fill the gap, it widens it. They've experienced situations where they gave everything, time, effort, consistency, only to feel more alone standing next to someone than they ever did standing alone. With age, a man's emotional priorities shift. Peace becomes the new currency. Stability becomes the new attraction. Respect becomes the new requirement. A man over 40 doesn't care if a woman is beautiful, flirty, or high energy. If she disrupts his peace, she loses all value in his eyes, and this isn't arrogance, it's self-preservation. Psychologists often talk about earned wisdom, the ability to finally see patterns clearly because you've lived through them enough times. Men over 40 have earned their wisdom. They know what emotional manipulation looks like. They recognize when affection comes with strings attached. They spot inconsistency instantly. What they once called chemistry, they now understand might actually be trauma bonding. What they once excused as passion, they now recognize as instability. And because of this clarity, they detach quietly. Not because they don't feel, but because they've learned to protect what they feel. Another major shift at this age is emotional independence. Younger men often rely on women for comfort, validation, or emotional grounding. But by 40, most men have built their own internal structure. They've developed routines, morning walks, gym sessions, reading habits, hobbies, spiritual practices that keep them emotionally regulated. They no longer need someone to soothe them. They don't crumble without attention. They don't need romantic reassurance to function. And here's the twist. When a man stops needing emotional rescue, he also stops tolerating emotional chaos. He becomes allergic to guilt tripping, silent treatment, passive aggression, and inconsistent affection. Not because he's harsh, but because he's finally in tune with his own well-being. As one 52-year-old man once said in an interview about love, when you stop depending on someone emotionally, you start seeing the relationship for what it actually is, not what you hope it could be. That is the second major shift men over 40 experience. Another layer to this transformation is solitude. Men don't fear it. They discover they actually thrive in it. Living alone becomes peaceful, not lonely. Eating alone becomes freeing, not sad. Traveling alone becomes empowering, not embarrassing. Many men say it feels like oxygen. No arguments, no expectations, no emotional pressure. The silence itself becomes healing. And once a man falls in love with solitude, the bar for letting someone into his life rises dramatically. A relationship is no longer something he needs. It's something he must carefully evaluate. And if a woman doesn't bring calm, kindness, clarity, or consistency, he'd rather stay alone, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. This is what most women misunderstand. When older men pull away, it's not because they no longer care. It's because they cared too much for too long in the wrong places. They gave more than they received. They tolerated more than they should have. And at some point, they learned their lesson the hard way. They're not cold, they're careful. They're not uninterested, they're selective. They're not bitter, they're finally protecting themselves. This is the second realization men over 40 experience. Happiness isn't something a woman gives him, it's something he builds himself. And when he builds it, he's not willing to let anyone destroy it. If this resonates with you, comment clarity below so the message locks in your mind. By the time a man reaches 40, another truth becomes impossible to ignore. Most of what he was taught about relationships was built on expectations that only went one way. For decades, he was told to provide, protect, stay strong, stay stable, be consistent, be understanding, be patient, be the rock, be the leader. While his own needs sat quietly in the background, and mature men finally begin to see how much of their identity was tied to performing. They spent years showing effort, planning dates, fixing problems, carrying emotional weight, trying to be the good man, the reliable one, the stable one. And the crazy part is that most men didn't mind doing it until they realized how rarely the effort was matched. This is the moment where the internal switch flips. A man over 40 begins to see the imbalance for what it is. He sees when a woman is contributing and when she's simply receiving. He sees when she's genuinely interested and when she's treating him like a backup plan. He sees when he's being valued and when he's merely being used for convenience. And once a man sees these patterns clearly, he can never go back to ignoring them. This is where the refusal to perform begins. Not because he's lazy, but because he's tired of relationships that feel like job interviews, tired of always having to prove himself, tired of being tested, tired of being expected to lead while being criticized for how he leads, tired of being emotionally available while receiving emotional volatility in return. Men over 40 know exactly what it feels like to be someone's emotional provider while their own feelings go unnoticed. That kind of imbalance becomes impossible to tolerate with age. And when a woman shows entitlement, demands, or disrespect, whether subtle or direct, he disconnects without explanation. He doesn't yell, he doesn't argue, he doesn't beg someone to treat him better. He walks away because he's learned that the wrong woman only changes when she loses access to him. Another major part of this transformation is financial wisdom. When a man is young, he spends recklessly, time, money, energy, believing he'll always recover. But at 40, 50, or 60, he becomes acutely aware of the value of what he's built. His savings, investments, retirement plans, assets, these aren't hypothetical future goals anymore. These are the results of decades of work, and he becomes very protective of them. Men over 40 can feel instantly when a woman is more interested in what he provides than who he is. The moment a connection feels transactional, his attraction vanishes, not because he's cheap, but because he's worked too hard to become someone's safety net disguised as a relationship. Another part of this awakening is realizing how emotionally draining modern dating can be. The games, the indirect communication, the expectations that men must always initiate, always fix, always be calm, always be ready. It becomes exhausting. A man over 40 has no patience for passive-aggressive behavior, silent treatments, emotional manipulation, or arguments that go nowhere. He wants clarity. He wants emotional maturity. He wants peace. If a woman argues to win instead of understand, he checks out. If she uses emotion as a weapon, he steps back. If she creates conflict for attention, he's gone. Men over 40 don't raise their voice. They remove themselves from situations that require them to. This leads to one of the biggest transformations of all: self-love. Most men spend their early adult years putting everyone else first: family, partners, work, responsibilities. But somewhere past 40, something changes. He starts honoring his own needs. He starts saying no. He sets boundaries. He listens to his own instincts instead of suppressing them. He chooses environments that feel calm instead of chaotic. And when a man starts valuing himself, he stops chasing anyone who doesn't value him back. This is the third realization mature men experience. He doesn't need to perform to earn love. If a woman cannot meet him with equal effort, equal respect, and equal emotional consistency, he simply walks away. No drama, no explanation, no regret. Here's the part most people misunderstand. Men over 40 don't lose interest in women. They don't suddenly become cold, distant, or unwilling to connect. The opposite is true. They become more aware, more intentional, more grounded in what truly matters. They stop caring about the wrong women so they have the space to welcome the right one. Because once a man hits 40, the noise of life quiets down. He's been through enough to recognize the difference between genuine affection and emotional dependency, between appreciation and entitlement, between a partner and someone who simply wants to be taken care of. He has lived through infatuations, compromises, disappointments, and eventually, he develops what psychologists call mature attachment clarity. He knows what feels right and what drains him. And the number one thing he protects at this stage? His peace. Men in their 40s, 50s, and beyond are not interested in chaos. They don't want drama disguised as passion. They don't want tension framed as chemistry. They don't want relationships that require work ethic from them and emotional randomness from someone else. They want calm, softness, reciprocity, a woman who knows how to communicate, not one who confuses conflict with connection. A man over 40 has learned that emotional chaos steals years off his life, while emotional peace adds them back. And because of that, he becomes extremely selective. He can admire beauty, flirt, enjoy attention, but he only invests in a woman who brings stability, gratitude, kindness, respect, and consistency. Not perfection, peace. There's a famous line from Epictetus that hits especially hard for men at this age. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Men over 40 live this. They don't care if others call them distant, picky, old school, or emotionally unavailable. They know they're simply protecting the life they worked decades to build. They're not avoiding love. They're avoiding unnecessary suffering. Another powerful shift happens too. They finally recognize their own value. Their experience, wisdom, emotional steadiness, loyalty, and maturity are not common traits in today's dating world. They bring grounding energy, clarity, and structure into a relationship, but only when they feel respected, only when they feel appreciated, only when the connection adds to their life instead of complicating it. And this is the truth that women rarely expect. Men over 40 are willing to walk away from anything that threatens their peace, not because they're emotionally damaged, but because they finally understand what a healthy relationship actually looks like. They've lived long enough to know that love without peace is not love at all. It's emotional debt. When a man reaches that stage, something inside him changes forever. He no longer chases, he no longer argues, he no longer tries to convince someone of his worth. He simply moves forward, calmly, confidently, and without hesitation, with or without someone beside him. This is the final realization men over 40 experience. Love is valuable, but peace is non-negotiable, and the right woman will bring both. If this final truth resonates with you, comment "Peace First" below. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to join a growing community of men who are leveling up, thinking differently, protecting their peace, and building lives that actually feel good to live.